Welcome to Heart, where we break the silence, bridge the gaps, and bring real conversations about mental health to the forefront. I'm your host, Leigh Ioffe, founder and director of The Long Short Road. Hi, Chaya. Welcome to Heart to
Morning.
Heart.
Thank you, Lee, for having me. I'm very excited about this. I
Very.
love everything you're doing also. So,
This is also so fun for me because our lives have intertwined so many different times
yeah.
over from it's been
What, 17 years?
has it been? I
Something like that.
I graduated in 2010 and it's 16
Ah,
years.
right.
That is wild.
Yeah, that is crazy. Yeah, it is crazy because I can't say, I mean, I am in touch with some people, but like, life in a year, in a month, everything changes so much. But it's very cool that we're just,
I know we keep like meeting each other along the way on the journey.
I love it.
It's pretty
Thank
cool.
God.
Thank God
Yes.
for being here. So actually I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in your own words.
So I'm Chaya. Chaya Serraf. I'm originally from Montreal, proud Canadian, but living in Israel now for the last 10 years. How do I summarize? It's always like, do I summarize what I do or do I summarize who I am as a person,
Right.
But I think it's a mix of both, but I'm very much a creative in so many ways. I think, I was blessed with a lot of talents, and sometimes I'm like, but maybe I'm a little bit of that, maybe I'm more of this, and I'm like, just you're just a creative. Just tell people you're an artist, you're a creative, and that's still people still want to know, like, what does that mean? But I think I'm just someone, and I think this is something natural. I would say that, God created us each in different ways so that we can serve, the world and people around us in the way that they need to. Um, and so most of us are born with like this innate being. And I think this innate being of mine is just very like strongly connected to my soul.
Hmm.
Um, it might sound lofty to some people, but I sing, I write, I do like so many different things, and everything I do, I just feel like my soul is like, so yeah, I'm just a creative. I genuinely love people. That's the truth. I'm not like a big social group type of person, but I really genuinely love like people, and I'm just curious about, learning about people, and yeah. So I would say that that's that. What else would you like to know?
Well, the things that when I was looking at the website for Story Labs, you describe yourself as a story wizard.
I am a
So-
story
Okay,
wizard.
so can you explain what that means, please?
Sure. So I would say that, like kind of being a jack of all trades is amazing, but then you're like, shoot, I really need to figure something out that like one thing that's just going to ground it all and that encapsulates it all. I did music school for 5 years, and then, so I kind of like moved around a lot in the different things I did. And then I realized, I remember calling my mom and being like, Mom, I'm going to be a writer. She's like, this is what I've been waiting for. I was like, why didn't you tell me? Like, I've been trying so many different things. But, even when I was in music school, like my songs were stories. Like, I couldn't just write a song. It needed to be a story and a build up. And I realized over time that, like, I couldn't write all the stories in a song. So I started writing more. And then as I started writing, I realized that I had so much more space. Like the pages didn't end. The
Mhm.
song didn't end after a minute, like so I just kept writing, and I realized that there's so much I kind of I call myself a story wizard because I literally am obsessed with stories, and I will make people feel the story like with their senses. I call myself really a somatic writer. It's a little too far out for people because they're like, what does somatic writing mean,
But
But
it's
maybe
really getting in touch with what's at the essence because you could write and be very disconnected from yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
So, yeah. Like the goal, why I call myself a story wizard or a somatic writer is because, and this came from my audience, by the way. I learned so much about who I am as a writer from the people who read my stories.
mm,
They were like, I felt it in my body. For
mm,
me, highest level of compliment is that I felt it in my body,
yeah,
because if someone felt it in their body, then chemically something is changing.
totally.
There, like some belief is switching over, like if you're secreting more saliva, like something is
Yeah.
agreeing, something's moving, and we want that movement. So yeah, I'm just any kind of story that I could possibly write, I'm in. I'm literally obsessed. Love hearing stories, writing stories, telling stories. People are always like, I make a short story long, I'm not the long story person.
Um, I love that though. And I really like that what you were saying about when the highest compliment is that someone feeling it in your body. What I was thinking about was the power of story to like define space and time, right? Like the fact that someone who is a different age, different gender, different circumstance in life could read your work and feel it on a core level, like that just, we are inherently, we are hardwired for storytelling. And there's
Yes.
something so healing about storytelling and the
Yep.
need for sharing story. Um, it's I think our narrative is our way of making sense of the world.
Oh my gosh, 1,000,000%. By the
Yeah,
way, the Torah is also, sorry.
right. No, please go
Yeah.
on.
No, the Torah is written in stories. And I remember when I discovered my obsession with stories and Mishalim, by the way, parables. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, obsessed. Um, it was like early on, I would like Google all the time as a kid, just like I wanted more parables and more because it's a gentle way of absorbing information.
Yeah.
You can tell someone something, but then you could tell them a story.
Okay.
And then it suddenly opens up like all these kind of like branches in their mind of like, oh my gosh, it's pulling me here, there. And you could hear that story again in a month and it tells you something else. So stories are really, really, really powerful in on all levels. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that way also about expressive writing, that like you could write about the same thing. And the way, when I sit down to write about something, and then even 6 weeks later, I write about the same topic,
Yeah.
are we have that fluidity of like it does shift us. There is, right? And like people might think like, what? There's an immediate nervous system shift. It's like, well, if movement starts happening, then you're going in the right direction. It's not
Yeah.
about telling the story one time and then there's like
Right.
immediate liberation and shift. It moves,
That's
it's a slow burning
yeah.
process.
Oh my gosh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Beautiful. Okay, so I want to talk to you about one of your stories that is out in the world, has
Sure.
been out in the world for a while right now, which is your short film Feel,
Yes.
which I just want to tell you before I start asking questions, my favorite scene was the screaming in the street scene.
Oh my gosh,
Because
yes.
I so badly, I was like, how I wish sometimes I'm like out walking the baby, pushing a stroller, and I could just scream into the air.
Right.
And
Right.
so I just wanted to tell you that that was the best, that for me,
Yes.
best scene of the show of the film.
No,
Um,
for sure.
I felt so seen.
Yeah,
Could you tell us a little bit about, well, first tell us a little bit about the film and also, I guess, the process behind it and
sure.
was it taken from your life? What parts of it were connected
Right.
to your experience? Things like that.
Okay. So it's funny because when you make art, you want to be like, no, it's not about me, like because you don't want people to know.
Right.
But what I realized you just can't run away from it. It's you.
Yeah.
You're writing and it's you. Unless you've been doing this for a long time, then you can start adapting. But I really believe that the early on, like the stuff, when we went to the festival, everyone who was there and it was their first film, I was like, okay, I'm getting to meet this person right now.
Right.
And it was like so obvious.
Right.
So, like I said, I wanted to believe that it's not about my life in some way. So, I built this character and I knew very much that I would base it off my experience, but I didn't necessarily think that I would reflect who I am in the film. Do you get
Right.
what I mean? I
Yeah.
wanted to like save a part of me. And maybe that's why it took me time, to release it because I was like, I don't know if I want the world to see all of me,
Right. Right.
But there's so much
Very
more.
vulnerable.
Yeah, yeah. It's
True.
like another level of vulnerable.
Right.
And it was very much based on my processes, which was very important for me, specifically the inner child work, because during COVID, I had done a lot of that work before,
Like
and
the
I did like
self-work.
hard, yeah, the inner child work, but like shadow work, all that stuff, somatic. I was like, and I was pretty much in it alone.
Mm,
Most of the people in my life hadn't gone through that.
mm,
But it was okay because it was brutal. I had a very good therapist. Um, until today, like I used tools that she gave me, like really,
wow.
really, but I was pretty much alone. It was literally me and God.
Wow.
And it was scary. It was scary. I had no idea how long this would last. I had no idea how deep, how painful, and I would write a lot. And I'm someone, and again, I believe this is a gift from God, who can very take a lot of information and clarify it into like a process. Okay, why does this, and it's done a lot for me. It's also harmed me in some way because, sometimes you just need to be in your body and not intellectualized. So I had to find the middle. But now I'm in a place where, like it's still a tool that's very, very powerful. So I was able to write down my processes and I started sharing. And so people, were like, whoa, what is this? This is so interesting, so intriguing. And then when COVID came, I started writing about how I believe people would feel because what people were going through COVID was what I was going through before. I didn't
Isolate.
talk for 6 months at one point, literally didn't talk for nearly 6 months. I was so, I couldn't breathe. I
Wow.
would go to school, wouldn't say a word. You
Wow.
know, anytime I would hear my thoughts, come home, eat, and just cry and cry and cry. And I had to do a lot of that work anyways. But then when COVID came, I saw people were messaging me. They were losing touch with themselves, literally.
Mm.
And, I was having like all these conversations. I had, all the time in the world, and I was posting stuff as well. And it just got to a point where I was like I need to put something out that's really going to give people some tools as to how this inner child work works.
Mhm.
Because also, when you hear about it a lot, you get tired of it.
Yeah.
Like kids are like, when are the kids going to sleep? You don't want to hear about this inner child work all the time. But it's not overrated. It's extremely important. I
Right.
do believe that, you transition after to your inner teenager and there's like so many different levels, but the inner child work is so, so important. And I wanted to put out, because I knew my process, I wanted to put it out into a film in a
Mhm.
way that's tangible and also like a little bit like what's happening,
Right.
But the scream scene, yes, was very important because I wanted to focus on the senses, and like all the things that people are scared to do. Like, hell yeah, everyone just wants to be screaming. Like, we're out walking in the supermarket, like, with our purses and our tight lips. Scream, woman, just
Yeah.
scream, you know? So, yeah.
Wow. So then, if I'm hearing, I'm going to hear, I'm going to say back to you what I'm hearing, that your early process of healing and like going into your early child work was very deep, very heavy, and very lonely.
Yeah.
So like you were really in the what they call, the healing journey,
Oh,
where you're
yeah.
like fully immersed in healing. And like you and I have actually talked about this off camera, that
Yeah.
like there's a time and place for that, and it can
Oh,
also
yes.
be detrimental if it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
lighten up eventually.
Yeah.
Right? Like, sometimes you just need to stop healing and have fun.
A must.
You
And
just,
by the way,
right?
yeah. By the way, that was the hardest part for me
Was
because,
to stop healing.
yeah, I was like,
Okay.
what do you mean? I don't
I'm
know how to
with
do
this
this.
now. I know how to do this, right?
I was like, no, I know why I don't want to be in
Right.
social settings. Right? It's just like got out of hand. I was like, you
Right.
know what? This is like a little tiring.
Right.
And I knew at some point I was getting tired of this narrative,
Yeah.
because like you're so conscious and so aware of everything you're doing
Right.
when you're healing.
Right.
But like, I want to feel insecure.
Right.
I want to feel insecure. Today, when I feel insecure, I'm like, yes. Oh my God. And I remember telling this to people. And they were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to feel insecure sometimes. Like, I want to know that I'm not in control or I know what's happening or I'm only going to places that,
Because
you
that's
know,
healing. That's just trying to control the outcome. That's the thing. I find, I can't speak for other people's experiences. I know what I've heard from other people, but I also know what I had from my own experiences. I feel like the early years of my therapy was a lot of not navel grazing, but a lot of like looking at my wounds with a magnifying glass, and all I
Yeah.
could see then was the wounds.
Yeah.
And I think that's necessary. Like,
Million
it
percent.
has, you have to, because how do you know how to move forward if you don't know what's holding you back? But
Million
I
percent.
did feel that it got to a point where it was like, I think it was 2019. It's like, I can't do this any, like, I joined a hip hop class. Like, I was in a hip hop competition. I was like, I just have to do something that
Yeah.
will totally throw me out of my social
Yeah.
anxiety, my fear of being seen, my fear of making mistakes. And I did it, and that was obviously you need all that other stuff to get there. But at
Yeah.
one point, you just have to like live your life again.
Million percent. It's very, there's like this thing about, feeling safe, right?
Yeah.
Because, how do you just stop doing that? And of course, it needs to be intuitive. Like, you need to know, like, when it feels right. Maybe you grew out of your therapist. Like, are you willing to admit that you grew out of your therapist?
Yeah.
By the way, most likely your therapist will not tell you that you grew out of her.
No.
Like,
True.
so you need to do that work.
Right.
But I do want to say, and I want to say this again for anyone watching or listening, what Leigh said is so important, that it's so important to be in that grief and
Yeah.
that pain, and it's not fun. It's
No.
just not fun. I know how not fun it is, but you just need to be there and sit with it, and hopefully, the process doesn't have to be so long. Everyone has different processes. There's no textbook for this. But I think that, like, ultimately, you can come out of that space. First of all, performing arts, I'm a huge, 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 huge fan. Not only a fan, I really believe a lot of the time when I talk to people who are in therapy, I'm like, please pursue something with your hands,
Yeah.
work with your hands. Like, when I remember when I was like, okay, I have too much crazy in me and I feel like a little bit self-conscious about it. I was like, I need to place it in a place where my crazy will be like, I signed up to acting classes.
Love it.
And the crazier you were, the better. And I was like, finally. And you know what? That was a very healing, actually, like very healing time for me, because I was like, you're taking what you have and how you feel about it and you're putting it in the right space. So it's a lot of that. But I want to say about feeling safe, you're not always going to feel safe.
Not the point of healing.
But, right. But the way to tiptoe into spaces that, is to go with someone that you feel safe with,
Sure.
at least, because, you can't just be like, okay, now I'm just gonna ignore my social anxiety and I'm just gonna, no,
Myself
go.
into the deep end. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, you need to do it. And I think, like, I've heard a lot of this like safety talk, and I remember someone posting and being like, you know what, safety's overrated, like enough already. And, I was like,
Maybe there's a balance
yeah,
of like I do think that there's such an important like until our nervous systems don't feel safe, we cannot approach, right? Like we need that. But also part of safety is knowing that you are safe even in uncertainty.
yeah,
Safety is not I stay in my cocoon, I stay where it's comfortable, I never branch out, I never try because then I'll fail. Safety is I may fail because there's a cause and effect in life and not always will
yeah.
you succeed, but I'm safe within me and I'm holding myself and I have an anchor even when the external circumstances don't work out in my favor, which is
That's tough.
super hard. It's so hard.
It's
As I'm saying that, I'm like,
years.
wow,
I
I know
know.
what that's like.
Yeah, listen, I remember being in that place of like not, my body wasn't a safe place. I didn't even know what my body was, to be honest. I was living in Australia, but my body was here. Like I was just not connected. Like what you're sharing is like, I wish I can tell people it's that simple, but that's what I'm saying. The transition is find someone that has been through it. Go to a party with a 50-year-old woman. I don't care. If you feel safe with her, go. But like, I think that is like a very, because I've been there for people who
Yeah.
literally were like, oh my gosh, and I was like, I'm here, but I didn't hold her hand. I was like, you got this. I'm right here. Like, and it's such a little moment, but like it gave them the security that, they can go and they could always come back and they can go and they could always come back. But if you could be that person for someone, that's amazing also. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying also about there being like the shift. It's not like you jump in now and you're like, okay, I've done the work, so
No,
I'm just going to do exposure therapy at full volume. Like we have
no,
to
no
ease
way.
into these processes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it really.
Yeah, it's funny because one of my I do kinesiology, applied kinesiology. I'm not going to get into it too much. It's much more popular in Israel than it is here. It's muscle testing. I know people here do emotion code, but this is emotion code on steroids. This is like a whole different.
I think it's been around for longer, no?
It's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
But emotion code is much more I guess it's a light version of
right,
kinesiology. It works with the muscle, like
right.
every muscle, like this, that, like everything. People can look it up, but it's basically what it's saying is like your muscles remember. they how can I explain it? If you went through a situation, if a child was hit a lot, so they did this a lot,
Right.
all this
Right.
body movement,
Right.
all the muscles involved, need to relearn how to.
Feel
So
flow.
anyway, it's very, very interesting. But she would tell me, go where the oxytocin is. You need to always be filled with oxytocin. If you go somewhere, I don't know, you rent a room in a hotel and it doesn't feel good, leave. You have to leave. You have to go where the oxytocin, the love hormone is. And that love hormone doesn't always come from, getting a hug or, cuddling with someone. Like it could come from so many, smelling a flower.
From singing. You look at studies of how people like that you do a survey before and after a concert and how deeply connected you feel to people from
Yeah,
singing with strangers,
yeah.
right? That's like one of my favorite ways of filling my bucket is singing. And then when I sing with other people, and then you're like, right? So it's just
It's true. Also, by the way, a friend shared this with me, like, because, I sing and I love that stuff, but mizmor, is also from the word zorem, which is to flow. And there's movement, and that's what we want. When you sing,
you're
we
moving.
want it to be
Right.
moving. Yeah.
Right. And I appreciate what you said before about like doing something with your hands, right? Like if it's art or sculpture or like I build Lego, that's my hand
Love
movement.
it. Can I ask you about
Uh,
that?
or like writing or, dancing. It's we have to move the energy through our bodies. I think that healing can feel very heavy. When you're like exposing your wounds to oxygen, it's gonna hurt, right? It's like a backdraft.
Yeah,
Kristen Neff, who was the researcher on self-compassion, talks about this, that like sometimes when you start feeling your feelings, it gets worse before it gets better.
sure.
Because you're like, if you've been pushing down all this stuff for so long, when it starts coming up to the surface, it's not going to feel good.
Right. For
But
sure.
being able to, while you're in the process of doing the thing that you know you need to do that doesn't feel good, channel that energy
Yeah.
to your hands,
Yeah.
or your voice or something.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
so important. Like, I feel like Hashem gave us the tools of creativity, and we don't know how to utilize them in today's world.
Yeah. It's for women especially, it's a
Yeah,
must.
yeah.
Women don't realize that because I think, I had to learn what it means to be a woman,
Okay.
like from
Tell
the beginning.
So tell me what you mean, how
It
you
was
define.
hard. Listen, it was hard because I grew up very much on survival mode,
Mm.
like fight, make it work, survive. I had lost my dad when I was 11. So for me, everyone reacts differently, but for me, I was like, we're gonna make it, I'm gonna, so I became like this fighter. Um, and because I was a smooth talker and, all that stuff, like everyone was like, oh, she seems to be doing great.
And
Not really.
like in the time that I've known you, you
Yeah.
were you've gone to music school, you had a fashion company, you are do you remember that? I
Yes.
remember that, right?
Yeah.
Like, right?
Oh yeah.
I remember being in Israel like the week you applied to music school. Like I just walked in and told them I was gonna go to, like, I'm here to
Yeah.
apply. Like, no, right. But you're saying like that's a very masculine response to the
Oh
world.
my
You're saying is
God.
that
Yeah.
hustle, the
The hustle. I hate that word. Yeah. I was very much in the hustle, um, of like, I can succeed at anything I do and I will. But, it took time for me, first of all, to finally kind of like break apart and break open. This happened through a relationship. Um, and I had to learn. I didn't know what was inside there. I didn't know that there were feelings and so many. It was kind of, that's the thing. The way I see it is like it's a landmine, like it's like either you do it yourself and you start walking through, or someone's going to be walking through your life and it's just going to explode at moments. You'll be like, why do you do
right
that? And
explosives, right?
right. So, I knew at that point when everything kind of like, I got my first, my heart was broken the first time, it breaks, everything comes out, related or not.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I had to do that whole process, but I think becoming a woman, after the inner child, there was like, the inner teenager, all that stuff. And finally I got to the divine feminine. I'm like, who is she? Like, can I have children? Like I was asking all these questions, but I really just needed to understand what it means to be a woman. And it was hard. I didn't know. because I knew I wasn't a full-on feminist, but I did have like a lot of beliefs that was like, we're strong women, I could have a career and all that stuff.
It's
I
also
always knew I
like a
wanted
very like as a side note, it's like a very Lubavitch thing that women are like,
a
we're
hundred
really,
percent
we're shlucha.
killer.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We're,
yeah, very much.
I mean, to quote Beyonce, like strong enough to make the millions, have the babies and get back to business. Like we do that.
Right. Right. Yeah, 100%.
You didn't
And
think I was gonna say Rebbitzins and Beyonce in the same sentence, but they
yes,
have a lot in common.
they do. It's true though, because now that I'm gonna go to the end where like now I feel like I'm in a very feminine place.
Yeah,
So much so that I'm like, women don't realize their power. But
yeah,
I had to go back and understand. I was Googling stuff, I was researching, and then I landed on Clarissa Pinkola Estes, which I highly recommend, people looking into, she's not Jewish, but she actually talks about hair covering and all these things. But she has so many different stories. She helped me understand, um, what it means to be a woman. And, it was little things like I would put on my leather jacket and I would walk. And I was like, could you just walk?
black,
Can you try that?
right.
It was like the little things. And then like I had like spreadsheets. Like my friend was making fun of me, but I'm a Gemini. Like this is how we work. I was like, how am I taking care of every part of my body? My lashes, my under, and it was like it's all these and then it like so much connected with like, the intimacy of being a woman and mikvah and all that stuff and how we need to take care of every part of us. So there were so many things that were coming together for me about being a woman, and it allowed me again because I had done coming into my body
Yeah,
work. My intuition was heightened because my body was calm.
right.
I needed to know everything. I needed to know if I was dating a guy, if I was going to marry him. I needed to know right away because I couldn't deal with it.
Uncertain.
It was almost like if I was around me during that time, it's tough.
Hmm.
Like I was very anxious, you know? But anyways, about being a woman, there's so much to say, but I think it's just really connecting to your senses. That's what it is. Like that's why I'm saying that women don't realize that how important it is. We carry the world, we absorb, we see it, we see, a child in a stroller and he looks sad, we absorb that.
Totally.
Maybe not like right away, but it's somewhere here. We felt for that. So we're collecting and collecting and collecting. And like we need to be putting it out with our hands, with our bodies. Like there needs to be, the input and output. And it makes us, better women for ourselves and for everyone around us.
Totally. I
So,
just was having a conversation with someone earlier today, and she was saying on that same through line that like we have like a divine, we're divinely ordained to take care of ourselves. Like we have
100%.
we have like Hashem doesn't want us walking around like shmatas.
No,
But somehow we've convinced ourselves that we are supposed like that
yeah,
that's the highest pinnacle of like that's the highest pedestal we could get to as a woman is to be depleted and exhausted, just an overflowing vessel of giving. But I always say like an empty vessel
no,
can't give. If the keli is empty, then like you're
I'm
not helping
totally
anybody.
100%. Listen, I think that the whole, in a way, I feel lucky because I would, everyone has their own journey, but like I've been single, I'm 35, and much of my work has been really loving myself. Not like got my nails done, love myself.
Right.
I mean, like seriously, like, prioritizing and setting boundaries and knowing what's good for me and ending a friendship if that means, like all these little, little, little things that keep, this energy, like, intact. Of course, nothing's perfect, but I really feel that like loving ourselves and caring for ourselves is 100% God's work. There's no question. Like no one can argue with me about that. And I remember also in my journey of becoming a woman and feeling like a woman was realizing like, oh my gosh, women are not meant to be working full time.
No.
No way. This is bad for us. This
Yeah.
is actually bad for us. Half a day should be spent. And by the way, I discovered this as I was writing my film, you should know.
Okay.
Because when I was writing my film, I wasn't religious. I don't like to say that, but I wasn't keeping Shabbat. I was kind of like renewing my vows with God, and we were dating. And I was like, let me see how ugly I can be, and if you're still gonna marry me. So I needed to just test that relationship and start from scratch. I wasn't keeping Shabbat, and but I knew I wanted to write a film. And
Mm.
it came from the pit of my, like, I can't explain it. It was like, I need to write a film. And like, I think artists, you're an author and you're a creative also, so you understand that. Like when you need to do something, it's almost like you have to do
Can't
it.
function until it's on pa at least until the idea is on paper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, a lot of it was, I remember I was like, Hashem, I will keep Shabbat if you plant the story in my head.
Mm.
And I remember I was at my grandmother's house. It was COVID. And, we ate dinner and everything. And I lay down on the couch, closed my eyes, and just watched the film
Wow.
playing in my head.
Wow.
It was a first script. And I couldn't believe that it worked. I couldn't believe that it worked. I know that I'm creative, but I really felt like Hashem was like meeting me there.
Wow.
Like I remember even, we needed to write, I after Shabbat, I wrote it all down, sent it to my friend. She was like, listen, I think we need to change it up.
Mm.
The next week, same thing happened. I said, Hashem, I will keep Shabbat if you help me make this film come true.
Wow.
And I remember sitting at the table with my grandmother and the guests, and I literally spaced out in middle.
Wow.
I was elsewhere, 100%. You could call it dissociating. I was writing a film.
I know that I remember hearing a poet once talk about how she was out in the field, like, harvesting wheat, and she felt the story coming into her body, and she had to hold it down and
Yeah,
run into her room so that it could
not a
move
joke.
through. I know that feeling. It's like, I've been in the grocery store and I'm like, give me a back of a receipt and
Yeah,
like whatever. I'll write with like the ink,
right.
the pop gushers open and write with the jelly
Yes.
inside of
Yes.
gushers. Like I need to get it out of me.
Yes.
Wow.
And I think that anyway, so I was, my grandmother was like, "Are you okay?" Like I was like, "Yes, yes, I'm fine," you know? And I got the film and I was able and I knew that it was Shabbat.
Wow.
Also Shabbat, by the way, that's why the Shabbos queen is a big part of my journey in a way because Shabbat is the feminine energy.
Yeah.
God sustains the world through speech during the week, and on Shabbat, he sustains it through thought.
Right.
Women, we have a lot going on inside. We just need to feel into it.
Hmm.
That's Shabbat. It's not only for women, it's for men too.
Right.
But it's a very
The
feminine
feminine
energy
energy.
of
Right.
like, knowing what am I sensing?
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't even like to tell people feel your feelings. I'm like, sense your feelings.
Right.
Sense them.
Well, because when you say feel your feelings, I feel like a lot of time it goes into the intellectualizing.
100%.
Feel my feelings means talk about how I'm feeling and intellectualize what the feeling is. That's not the same thing as
No.
feeling it. And we can
Yeah.
spend many years, people can spend lifetimes,
Yeah.
spiritually bypassing their feelings by
Yes.
talking about it.
Yeah,
You-
yeah, yeah. We're all we've all done it
Yes.
because I think we want to make sense. It allows us to feel grounded.
Right.
But I think it takes time until like, your body becomes really for me, like, and it was so many different things that got me to that place. But that was also part of the feminine energy. And then, obviously I ended up keeping Shabbat. After a while, I was like, I can't really do that. Like I made a deal with God if I write a film, whatever. But I did learn a lot. It taught me a lot about, you know, I'm a big fan of Shabbat, but again, it added to like the feminine, you know,
Right.
yeah,
Right. I always say, like, I wonder how people who don't keep Shabbat, how they function, because if I need that turn off.
no, me too, yeah,
Even when I'm on call on Shabbos, there's some Shabbosim where I have my phone on me, but I'm not scrolling and I'm in touch with one,
right,
right? Like it's
right,
different.
yeah, yeah. Listen, I think that people don't realize like even the 5, 6 day work week is crazy,
Yeah.
but people don't realize that again, connected to women especially, like we need time to do nothing and
Yeah.
be nothing,
Yeah.
because during that time we're becoming.
Right.
By the way, also, when I was washing dishes, I was writing stories.
Yeah.
And, doing movements like that,
Yeah.
allow us to think even better. I would go for walks and I would write better than sitting and waiting and trying to write. And I was like, oh my gosh. I remember calling my friend and being like, I want to clean my
Yeah.
house.
Yep.
Because when I sweep, I'm getting all these like my thoughts are working faster for me. They're working better for me.
Right.
And like, it was
Well,
just so interesting how like the home like wasn't, it's like you have to be at home, you have to do. No, I was like, no, like it's allowing me to move so many different things.
There's something so empowering and beautiful and sacred about that process and about,
Yeah.
there's sacred to be found in the mundane,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Sacred to be found in washing your dishes and sweeping your
Yeah.
floor and folding your laundry and
Yes.
whatever. And
Yes.
I don't know, this is one issue I see a lot, is that we've become such an instant world. You can Amazon Prime everything. You
Yeah.
can't Amazon Prime healing. And
No.
somebody asked me the other day, like, why is the organization called the Long Short Road? I was like, well, because it's a long road. I
Right.
can't give you, people call me all the time. They're like, what's the fastest way for me to heal from this? Or what's the one trick pony I could give my child to heal them from their suicidality? And I'm like, there's no such thing.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. We have to, but I think that there is something so necessary about that slowing down. We've lost
Yeah.
that. I think across the
Yeah.
board, men, women, children, like we've lost that
Yeah.
ability to connect life is a slow burn. Things don't just,
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And by the way, like I remember hearing someone recently say, like, life is long. Don't listen to people who say life is short.
like,
And like, you know what? It was so refreshing. It sounds so simple. Everyone we know should live till 120. But it's true. Life is long. And I used to be, stressed out. I'm 35 and like there's different, but you know what? Life is long. Look what you do in a year. Look what you can not just accomplish, but who you can become in a year, in a year's time. So yeah, I think the healing, I think there are, years of a lot of pain.
yeah,
Again, everyone has a different,
right,
but you can't fast track it, and it's really learning to be in the slow. And I think being with children allows us to do that,
yeah,
because they live now in the moment. And that's why the inner child work is so not appealing
right.
because we're like, hello,
I want to
like,
feel better already. I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to be
yeah,
past. And that's
yeah,
the thing. It's like to be a child is to fully be in the present because
yeah.
their brains are not yet able to hold
They
more than
don't need,
here. They don't need
yeah,
to.
yeah, they don't need it.
It
Um,
really,
yeah. But by the way, also in the film, especially the scream scene, you see how the mother, with the son, she's wearing a mask and she's like, no,
right,
because there was a very specific order that we made it, that she screams and the older, like Alex, the main actress, screams, and then the older man, who's like supposed to be a veteran,
right,
screams. And then the son screams, which is like the child who's like on board right away. And the mother who's like, no, and
right,
she has her mask,
right.
and I wanted to show that because like very often women are like, no, this is not what we do. And, and like, and then in the end, she breaks. And like, I was like, I want women to just, like lose
Yep.
your
Well, because
shame
anger
and
is a compass.
silence.
Anger is a compass. I think
Yeah.
especially, I think anger is an emotion that we're taught. I don't believe that there's such a thing as a bad or good emotion. All emotions are neutral. It's what you do with them that could be positive or negative.
Yes, I do also really believe, and again, this is just like stuff that I believe in. The way that I interpreted my own things as I was doing my healing is I believe there's inner body emotions and outer body emotions. So I consider, for example, I made like a list, like anger is an out of body
Emotion.
it's an out of body emotion,
Right.
but the in body emotion of anger is grief or sadness.
Yeah.
So like it helped me understand all emotions are acceptable and they're an indication, a door, a window, they're gonna lead you somewhere.
Right.
But it just helped me understand, I used to use very often will use emotions that allow us to still feel in control.
Cool.
Because you're not just going to be like, oh, let me just feel sad right now. It took me time, by the way, to feel sad and to feel grief. I remember like one of my therapists, she was like, just frown, like teach your body, like, do that, like, oh, that's sad, And I was like, oh my gosh, like sometimes you just need to learn
Yeah.
because so much of my responses in life was like, oh, I'm upset right now,
Well, but
you
we're
know?
also taught, I don't know. I think that a lot of people, myself included, were taught that there's certain emotions you're not supposed to feel.
For sure.
Or a bas melech. You don't feel sad. You don't feel angry.
Right, 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 right.
You don't da da
Yeah.
da. You're not,
Yeah.
being aggressive is not okay. And, I like this, the example that I use a lot in my work is looking at anger like an iceberg. I got that
Mhm.
from John Gottman, I think, that like
Okay.
anger is the surface and then
Yes.
look at what's underneath. And
Yes.
like it's just the tip of the iceberg. So if you're only
Yeah,
focusing on the anger, you're not, anger it's indicative often of something that's going on underneath.
for sure.
And so like you've gotta give yourself
Get
permission
into the body.
to get into the body.
Yes.
So just to, I think even just the entry point of you're
Yes.
allowed to feel.
Yes.
You're allowed. It's
Yeah.
okay. This is how
Yeah.
it created us. Somehow we've
Yeah.
gotten this warped idea that emotions are things we're supposed to repress and suppress, and we're supposed to just, you know, and it makes me think of like the Alter Rebbe compares anger to idol worship. Why? Because when you're
Right.
angry about something, you become so hyperfixated on the thing that you're angry about that it's like you're putting it on a pedestal and you're
Right.
just focusing on that.
Right.
That's not what I mean by feeling your anger. I say
Right.
recognize that it's there so you could
Right.
past it. It doesn't mean hyperfixate now on the feeling and who let you down and all the whatever. It's processing it.
Right. I want to say three things about that. Hopefully, I'll remember all three.
Okay.
But number one, I think anger, there's anger and there's rage. Rage is a huge, huge, huge part of healing that is so important. And again, what I wanted to show in the film was this like just unhinged, like screaming in the street, I don't care, I'm angry. And it turns out that people were like, me too. I just don't show it.
Right.
So I wanted to kind of do something a little bit extreme in that sense because rage is such an important part. And also the whole thing was the throat and the voice
Right.
and expressing that rage, which then allowed her to come back into herself. That
Right.
was the whole point. That after she screams, that's when she starts crying. She didn't
Right.
cry before.
Right.
So like she needed to open this channel of like, I'm enraged. Now it's obviously like, is it realistic, the film? Like, is this how it happens? No, but I just wanted to show a basic transition of how that is. But rage could last days, it could last weeks,
Right.
you know? And like, so that's that. And I also
Guys,
really like,
go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah. No, 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 go
I
ahead.
was gonna say, I don't know if you guys have rage rooms in Israel these days. We have them here in the States, and it's like
I heard.
you go and you
Israel can use some.
you like break apart furniture with an axe or something. It's like I haven't done them, but I know from people who have that. It's like it's very we have to move it through our
Yeah.
bodies because if it's just
Yeah.
being inside, it's
Yeah.
toxicity that we're just, holding in.
Listen, we're also scared. I think that rage, a lot of what we're scared of is we're scared of who we become when we feel that emotion.
Right.
So I understand people are afraid to be angry or to be outraged but the word regulating, this is the second thing I wanted to say. I don't like the word, regulate and all that stuff because
Okay.
it sounds like you need to, help a child regulate themselves is like, okay, let's get back to ourselves.
Right.
No,
This,
actually,
this
no.
is part of
No
who you
thanks.
are. Right. The dysregulation is part of being human.
Let's be dysregulated. And again, like people watching this who have kids are probably going to be like, nice try. You don't have kids. You don't know how hard
But
that is.
I agree with you because I know that when my children are dysregulating and dysregulated and losing their shit, the last thing they need is for me to be like, let's think about how we can get back to baseline. They
Yeah,
need
no.
to move through that emotion
Yeah,
first. Even if
yeah,
it takes 15 minutes of tantruming, trying to get my 2-year-old to finish up her tantrum sooner so she could just be better is
yeah,
counterintuitive to the process
yeah,
of what her body needs to, obviously there's healthy ways we can do it. And if a child is so enraged that like it's hours upon hours, then maybe there's like
yeah.
additional interventions they need, right? But
Yes, yes,
it's not to say that we just throw caution to the wind and allow it to be what it's going
yeah,
to be, but you
yeah.
have to allow the process to move.
Yes, yes, for sure. And the way they regulate is through,
Yeah.
if they're kicking and screaming or whatever, sometimes just sitting and letting them get it out. And that's why when we're older and we do the inner child work and we're like, we want it to be over, don't worry, the
Right.
tantrum's gonna be over. But are you able to kick and scream?
Right.
Like, are you able to just, have a tantrum?
Yeah.
Have a tantrum. It could be by yourself. But if that energy is moving through your body, you need to have that tantrum.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes people are like, I don't want to be angry, so I'm going to act calm. And I've seen this so much. Like, I'm a chill person. No, you're dissociated, my love. Like, you just, could you please be angry? Like,
Right.
so when you are honest with those emotions, feelings, senses that are moving through you, that's how you regulate. And
Right.
then, after a while, I was teaching in a preschool, in like it was like a little preschool, very cute, in Tel Aviv. And I had twins in the class, and the parents were divorced, whatever. They went through a hard time, and one of the twins was a darling, and the other one was very, very aggressive, and obviously, like I saw that she needed extra love and extra care. So in general, the classroom was like obviously created a very safe space, and like I have my approach with all these things, but it got to a point where, she would throw a tantrum. I wouldn't put her in a corner.
Right.
Sit next to her, the kids wouldn't even react anymore. The kids wouldn't even react because they saw that I wasn't, trying to remove the child.
Right.
And she was sitting there. And this one day, I couldn't believe it. I literally like went to my therapist the week after. And I'm like, I'm so moved by what just happened. So all the kids are playing, and she is crying. If I tell you, it was like 40 minutes. I'm
Wow.
not kidding.
Wow.
Kicking, screaming. She's not hurting anyone, but she was, and I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm here if you need, I'm here if you need. All the kids ended up going out to play. I cleaned up. She stayed with me, still followed me around, crying, crying, crying. In one shot, this was her. Like she just stopped crying. She's like, "Where's my friend?" I forgot her. I forgot who the friend was. Like everything just, and I was like, "He's outside. Do you want to go out?" She's like, "Yeah." Like she was like, "I'm done."
Right.
She
Her
basically
nervous system completed the cycle.
Yeah, and she was releasing so much. And I was like, I remember being I couldn't get it out of my head. I'm like, we don't know what this did for a child. She just released like all this,
Right.
ugh, I have the chills talking about it, but it's very special.
That's just, it's so funny because it's so I think it's counterintuitive to people when they hear that, like
Yeah,
you're not
sure.
supposed to, when I work with
Yeah.
parents or even when I'm, advising parents on their teenagers and it's like, well, my child is feeling this way. I'm like, okay, when your child is feeling this way or crying or feeling depressed or even, saying that they're feeling suicidal, do you sit with them?
Mm, right,
Are you
right,
sitting with them?
right,
Had someone tell me once, like, there was a couple of weeks where the child was feeling so depressed that they were crying on a regular basis. I said, do you ever sit with them when they're crying?
right.
Parent was like, actually, I don't think I have.
Whoa, whoa,
Like,
whoa, whoa.
just that you cannot underestimate the power of showing up for someone when there's nothing you can do to fix their scenario. That's
Woo!
right. It,
Chills all over.
it's
No.
so we sometimes when I tell people I'm like, don't underestimate the power of the relational connection. They're like, you're telling me that's going to solve the problem? I'm like, I didn't say that. It's not going to
Right,
solve the problem, but it's going to help them feel seen
right, right,
in their
right.
pain. And you can't
Yeah.
underestimate what that can do for a person.
Yes. And to be, like I've worked with teenagers a lot in my life, and education is probably one of the most important things to me. It's like art and education, and one day we will bring it together. But I've gotten a lot of calls over the years, and I still do, parents, struggling with their kids, their teenagers. And I recently told someone, I said, you need to be curious about what she's doing.
Right.
You can ask her. You don't agree with what she's doing. Ask her.
Ask her.
Just be curious. She's like, she couldn't breathe. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, this is part of her. She doesn't know what she's doing. She doesn't really know what she's feeling.
Right.
Talking it out with you, is creating the space for her.
Of course.
You, she knows that you won't agree.
Right.
Trust me, she knows your
Right.
body language, she knows you.
Right.
She knows you. But being curious about something you don't agree with is something that I also had to learn years back,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
And people don't realize how much that changes everything,
Right.
you know?
Because when there's a perceived judgment about a person's choices,
You
the
stop asking questions.
close, that's it. If
Right.
I'm struggling with something, right? I remember when I I don't know why this is the story that's coming to mind for me, but this is when I got divorced at 23, I stopped covering my hair. And
Yeah.
it was like a very emotional, big, hard decision. but it was
Yeah.
also something I had to do for my own healing. And
Yeah.
I remember the difference between someone asking me, like, what was the decision behind, two people asked me the same question. One person came with compassion and curiosity. The other person came with judgment of, like, how could you do that? And
Right.
the outcomes of both conversations were so
Whoa, whoa,
different,
whoa.
right?
Wow.
Because we know, I think that when people are in pain, if there's a perceived judgment or they feel that it's coming from a place of, like, you don't agree with me, so anything I'm going to say is going to be used against me, there's no room. Going back to that, what we were talking
Yeah.
about the importance of feeling safety. You
Right.
don't feel safe to
Right.
be yourself, you're not going to express
Right.
feeling.
Right. By the way, it's your inner dialogue.
Right,
You know, if you're like, I can't believe, like, I would never do that.
right,
Hey, you know what? Maybe you would.
right.
Try
You don't,
challenging,
you don't
yourself.
know,
And
right?
that's okay. That's okay. But yeah, a lot of people don't want to work on their inner dialogue. And it's much harder because when, this is why, having children, having a partner, all that stuff is triggering because
Put the mirror
you
in your
need to change
face.
your inner dialogue. Yeah. So it's definitely
And each child brings their own mirror.
oh yeah.
I had my first and it was eye-opening, and it completely shifted my life in ways that I didn't even think were physically possible. And I was like, oh, I got it. And then I had my second, I was like, I don't got it. I did not got it. And then the third one
That's
came and I was like,
hilarious.
I don't even know.
That is
Because
so funny.
each one of each person, it's like I literally feel like my daughters were born with a mirror in their hands. And they
Whoa.
and they hold up the mirror to me, and I don't like what I see a lot of the time.
Right.
And
Oh,
but it's also an opportunity to meet myself with compassion, which is very challenging.
yes. Right.
You
Right. Right.
can't
Right.
get yourself into, you can't be like, oh,
Yeah.
I hate that thing about myself. That's really going to
Right.
motivate me to change,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll find out when I have children. Like, I'm like, I did all this healing work, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna have children, and we're gonna find out how that's gonna work. But you know what? It's different because I really do see, like because I had done the inner child work, the tantrum didn't bother me.
Right,
For me, that was like great. I was like, just
right.
let it for as long as you need. So hopefully, God willing, I'll, apply
Really,
some of those.
really do think that, when we are able to, and that's part of it, is like when I think part of the biggest challenge for parents is their own uncomfortability with their own stuff. So,
Of
like,
course.
how are you supposed to hold space for a kid who's having a tantrum if you think what they're having a tantrum is stupid, and you can't connect to it, and you're
Right.
coming from your adult brain, you can't connect to where they're
Right.
at, right? Like, for me, it came from, like, the brain science perspective. I did all this work and research over the years on brain development and child brain development. And then once I understood certain things about the brain, I was like, right, when my child is having a tantrum, like, they're not in their body.
Oh yeah.
They're not. So any logical solutions that I'm coming to them with,
Right. Yeah. The
feel it.
tantrum is moving them back into their
Exactly.
body. I know.
Exactly.
I know. I mean, of course, like, yeah, it's there's so much because sometimes they need, like that pressure. They need a
Right.
hug, so they need space, and it's
Right.
a lot. Yeah.
But I think that goes back to also knowing ourselves.
Oh
How can
yeah.
you know how to give someone something that you don't know how to do? How
Yeah.
can you sit with someone in their discomfort if you don't allow yourself to feel emotions that are hard for you?
Yeah. But it's funny because it does take me back to the whole senses thing. And I wish people like took that more seriously of like, what am I sensing now?
Mm,
Because women, it's all about the senses. So much so that I believe, and I've experienced this with myself, because I'm connected to my own body and my senses and whatever, and I feel things right away. And that took time because sometimes it took me like a year to feel what I should have been feeling. Now I feel it because I listened to the senses in my body, but I didn't know how to do that.
mm,
And now that I'm there, I feel the senses in other people's bodies.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, if I'm with my niece or my nephew or whatever, I'm like, I think I know what they need,
yeah.
you know?
So then
And it
here's
could be
the
something in
question.
the eye, it could be something in the body, it could be something. It's very interesting. Like, and that's the power. Really, women don't realize how much power they have when they are in their senses. And again, I'm going to say it again and again about, pursuing some form of art,
Yeah,
painting, coloring. Get yourself a sketchbook, anything
yeah,
that can help you. And by the way, there's a whole science behind it about the left and right brain and
ah,
where the
right,
unconscious,
right.
whole different conversation.
I was
But
going to ask you, it's like I think that's the big takeaway here is for people who are listening. It's like to figure out a way to add more creative,
Must.
energy into your life because the healing will come, God willing. And the healing work is important. We need that. Like, you know, creativity for the sake of creativity, I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
If you're doing it from a healing perspective, like don't wait until you're healed. Because that's not how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. If we want to tie it all together, which it just came up to me, is that if you are choosing to be creative in your human experience, and that could be through your cooking or whatever, you're literally not, you're storytelling your unconscious mind. And it's going to come out in a way more pleasant
Mm-hmm.
mirror to you
Mm-hmm.
than it will if you sit. And I'm not saying you shouldn't go to therapy. Then if you sit and someone's like, well, you know that you have this and this problem.
Yeah.
Imagine you're doing art and you start realizing, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, actually, I answered back with that, and like that
Yeah.
probably didn't feel, so it's just a more gentle, it's just more gentle, and we want gentle. We want to evolve,
Yeah. Uh,
with this.
Bring on the gentle. It was my Hebrew birthday last week, and the bracha that I was giving everyone was that their challenges should feel gentle.
Yes,
Not,
yes.
because to give someone a bracha that you shouldn't have any challenges is not realistic. Like Hashem put us in this world, and that means, and
Yeah,
we're malachim, that means we're going to have challenges.
yeah, 100%.
But for it to feel gentle and soft, and
Yeah,
you can add gentleness and softness
yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it takes work, but the work is worth it.
I've had it on my wish list for 2 years to take an improv class, and after you said the thing about acting, I was like, I have to
Do
do
it. Do it.
I
Uh,
have to do it.
these things change your lives. Like,
I'm saying
I,
it on the show, so I can't take it back.
okay, I'm gonna check in with you next week. Make sure
You
you
know,
sign.
I like it's happened over the years where like I've been interviewed on someone's show or I've done a show and I've said something and then it's like great, now I actually have to actually
Right.
materialize it because I've said that I'm going to do it. So
Do it.
it
I
is.
think you're gonna be great.
Listen, my first I wanted to be an actress. Like,
Wow.
that was my
Wow.
like first
Do
thing.
it. Do
So
it. Do it. I'm
yeah.
excited. Oh my gosh. I love this stuff. It's literally like,
We didn't
the
even get into talking about the Story Lab, but I want to ask you about it briefly before
sure.
we go. So can
Sure.
you tell me a little bit about the business that you have now founded around storytelling?
Sure. Okay, so this has been a long time coming. I remember the first story I wrote as a child. I must have been like, I don't know how old I was, but I didn't know that books were so neat. Like, I couldn't figure out, I was like, this person has a really neat handwriting. Hello, printers. Hello. I couldn't figure it out. I was like, I don't have the right shade of my pencil, and but I wrote a story about some cat or whatever, and I was thrilled about it. And I was like, I'm gonna write books. And I remember that in sixth grade, my teacher said, "Let's do a play. Who wants to write a script?" My hand like shot up before I could even, and I was like, "I'll write it." And I wrote my first play. I got two other friends involved, and we wrote a play. The scenes were opening and closing after two lines, which made no sense. But I immediately told her that, like, I have an idea.
Mm,
And my brain was working so fast. I had seen a comic strip, it was literally three, um, what's the word? Like three pictures. That's all it was. It was like the lamest, simplest thing. There was no story. But something in that, I was like, I can make a whole story out of it. And I did. It was about a girl who was poor, who came from Russia, and girls were not nice to her, and she got bullied, and then she got into a car accident. Like, don't even ask. Like, anyways, made up the songs, everything. And we put on a play. I ended up playing the main part. But, that was like my first, experience, I would say, like writing some real, like making a play and bringing it, to life. And then, school and kind of like all those things kind of like got lost along the way. But again, I realized like I need to just write stories. So ONG Story Lab has been like my baby for in the last 8 months. I went to Thailand, and my goal when I went to Thailand was to put together this website. I had been working on it a few months before, like the idea of it, but I wanted a name and I wanted everything to be very, very, very like tangible. Like I wanted it to not just throw some random title. And if I'm sharing stories, then I have to have a story about my brand. That's how it came about. And olive and grape, because, I like to get to the essence of things. That's very much my thing. And I tell people I'm not for everyone. You may not want to work with me. Some people are like, please don't go to the deep stuff, or like, but
But
I'm like,
here to do the deep stuff, guys.
yeah, like I'm gonna challenge you. I literally like spoke to this company and I was like, I'm not for everyone. I will challenge your product. I will challenge everything because
Mm,
I want to make sure that you guys get the best. I
wow.
want to make sure that I understand it, and and again, some people don't want to be seen that much,
Right.
you know? But then I have clients who are like, "Oh my gosh, please, like I'm looking for that." So it's very interesting learning, like who wants a good story and who just wants like, a cute story.
So you're really helping them create branding around deep storytelling that really like brings things. It sounds like it's very deep work that you're doing.
It's very deep work, and I really believe that like everything can bring a shift to the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I think. If you're gonna make an amazing commercial, it needs to be like, let's get a message in there. And by the way, we all remember the Dove commercial, or whatever the thing they did with like drawing women and telling them they're beautiful. Do you
Oh,
remember that?
yes, 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 yes.
Everyone was talking about it, and then there was like articles saying they're pro and against and whatever. It doesn't matter. They took the
Started a conversation.
opportunity to start a conversation about something. And for me, I almost see it as like, if I'm working with a client who wants something that like Coca-Cola did, go find someone else to work. I will make you something incredible that's going to be very much you, because I want, but I want to be able, it's kind of what Steve Jobs said, like, I want to put a ding in the universe. Like, that's my goal. If
Mm,
I'm going to make something for you, I want it to shake something. I
yeah.
wanted to like, I'll just share, like my sister and brother-in-law had hired me to do, I didn't even post it yet, but my nephew's bar mitzvah video. And like a lot of people do like nice slideshows, whatever. And she told me, she's like, I want to, share a story about how like when you have a bar mitzvah, it's like there's a story of the Rebbe, with like telling the child who turned 13, like before 13, you're watching the game, and then when you're 13, you're in the game. You're a player. So we built basically a whole script around that. It was like a lot of research, and I wanted to be accurate in everything. And I put my soul into everything I do.
Mhm.
Like it's very, and so we built everything down to the T. And at the bar mitzvah itself, like then it was filmed and everything was put together. Okay, fine. At the bar mitzvah itself, they played it on a massive screen. There were like 200 people. People were bawling, screaming. Like this kid ended up telling her mother, I want to go to Jewish school. You're putting me in a Jewish school. And
Wow, I
I
have
couldn't
chills.
believe, I know, I couldn't believe, I remember feeling, and I feel it now, like this feeling that because there's a lot of things that I put in my scripts that are subconscious,
Right.
like little things that connect to the deeper meaning, whatever. And like, sometimes people tell me, like, no one's going to notice. I'm like, I don't need anyone to notice. I need the intention there. And when you see an entire crowd moved, so moved, I mean, people were hugging me and this women were crying. It like made me realize I'm like, this is huge. The power of a story told with intention is massive.
Yeah.
And again, it moves people, and that's the goal. So ONG Story Lab, we're not here to make a splash. We're here to like really shake something. And it could be a gentle shake. Some will demand more, and that's fine. But it's very important for me that ONG Story Lab is like a, you know, um, yeah. Thanks
Beautiful.
for asking about it.
I remember seeing the post a week ago and I was like, wait a second, I got to make sure
Yeah,
we talk about this because it's
thank
this
you.
beautiful, amazing offering that you're putting into the world
God,
and you have so much hatzlacha with it
yeah.
and
Thank you.
to continue really putting out that incredible creative healing energy into the world.
Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. There's actually like I wrote some episodes for Tavito and I was like, we need to make it, like emotional, social, and they're like, sure, okay. I was like, just let me do my thing. So I put in as much as I can because
Yeah.
I want parents to watch it with their children. Um, So you'll see, as the episodes come out.
I'm excited. When they're out, we'll put the link in the show notes.
Yay.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Chaya, so much.
Hey, of course. Thank you. This was amazing. I
So,
love talking to
same.
you.
Thank you for tuning in to Heart to Heart. If you or someone you love is struggling, please know there is hope and help is within reach. Since 2019, the Long Short Road has been walking alongside at-risk individuals, offering trauma-informed programs, a non-emergency hotline, and a community that fosters healing. No one has to go through this alone, and we are here for you. Discover how the Long Short Road is changing lives. Visit www.thelongshortroad.com or email us at info@thelongshortroad.com to learn more. You can be part of this mission. Sponsorship opportunities for Heart to Heart are available. Honor a loved one, support your community, and help us make mental wellness resources accessible to those who need them most. Until next time, remember, love and connection are the greatest healers. This is Leigh Ioffe reminding you, hope is here, healing is possible, and you are never alone. Together, we're walking this long, short road to a brighter future.